Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Pindrop Perspectives. Today we have two post-apocalyptic tales from an unreleased book. Mark, the crowd is ready and waiting. Take it away.
Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today we're going to journey together through a post-apocalyptic world. It's presented in the book Fallen Empire. And this one is really interesting, I think, because it's told as a series of interconnected short stories.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to focus on the first two of those stories for this deep dive. Blemish and Savage.
Mm-hmm.
They both paint a pretty bleak picture of what happens when civilization collapses, but they do it in very different ways.
Yeah. I think that is one of the most intriguing things about Fallen Empire as a whole. It's not just a straightforward narrative, It's like putting together a puzzle. You get these different pieces, and each story is offering a really unique perspective on the same world, this kind of shared world.
Right, like glimpses into different corners of this fallen empire and how people are sort of adapting or not adapting to this new reality. So let's start with Blemish. And this story drops us right into this town called Bellingville, 9 months after whatever caused society to collapse. It's a ghost town, practically desolate. And we meet Jordan, who is the protagonist here. And he is just trying to survive with his parents.
Yeah, and it's not even just the physical environment that feels desolate. There's this emotional emptiness that kind of pervades the whole story. Jordan's parents are so withdrawn, they're almost shells of their former selves, and even stealing food, which they have to do to survive, barely registers as, like a moral dilemma for Jordan.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me, too, like how the author normalizes these acts that in our society would be unthinkable. Even the police are participating in this looting. They have these things called property surrender. It's kind of chilling.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, where the line's drawn, when everything falls apart like this.
Exactly. Yeah, where is that line? And that's one of the questions that I think the author is really wanting us to think about. Is there morality when basic survival is at stake? Jordan is scavenging, he's looting, and it all speaks to this, this breakdown of norms, this regression back to this, more primal state of existence.
But even amidst the bleakness, there's this tension in the story between clinging to what's familiar, what's left, and venturing out into the unknown. There are these rumors of safer havens, broadcast on these clandestine radio stations, almost like a glimmer of hope, this twisted version of this classic American dream, right, seeking a better life. But now it's in the ruins of the old one.
It's a fascinating parallel, isn't it? This innate human desire for something better, even when faced with, so much despair. And what's really interesting is that you see this manifest in Jordan's mother. For most of the story, she's withdrawn and detached, but then she has this really surprising moment of clarity and strength, and she encourages Jordan to leave Bellingville. She sees the writing on the wall. There's no future for him there.
It's like she's passing the torch of hope to him, this belief that there might be something better out there, even though she's kind of given up herself.
It's a really poignant moment, and it really highlights the author's ability to give these characters such depth and complexity. Even in a short story like this, you get a sense of their past, their losses, the weight of their choices, all without, having huge amounts of exposition.
And then Blemish ends with Jordan leaving. He heads out into this uncertain future, which mirrors our suspense as readers. It leaves us wondering, will he find a better life, or was it all just a pipe dream?
It's a masterful cliffhanger, and it makes you want to keep reading to see where Jordan ends up. And that's where Savage comes in, throws us into a different part of this fallen world, but 3 years later. And here, the tone shifts dramatically. We go from this quiet desperation and Blemish to this really in-your-face brutality.
Yeah. It's like a punch to the gut.
Yeah.
We are introduced to this character called the General, and he rules his little community with an iron fist. And he's got this tank called the Beast, and it's got all these gruesome trophies on it. It's not subtle.
No, not at all. It's a very deliberate choice by the author to make the General and this tank, these symbols of power and brutality. It's almost like a caricature of a dystopian dictator. But it really works because it sets the stakes immediately. There's no room for nuance or dissent in his domain.
And then you've got Stephanie and Peter, these two young lovers who are just yearning for some kind of normal life, some love, some connection, which feels almost impossible in this world, right? It's this contrast between their innocent desire and the harsh reality that makes their story so tragic.
Yeah, and this plays into, that question we were talking about earlier about morality and survival. Stephanie and Peter represent this flicker of humanity, this yearning for something, beyond just existing. But the general's world is about power and control and crushing anything that challenges him.
Yeah, which leads to that horrific scene where he assaults Stephanie and then executes her for spitting at him. It's brutal, it's shocking, and it makes you wonder, is this what humanity has been reduced to? Is this the price of survival in this world?
Yeah, and it's a question that really stays with you. And what's really disturbing is the reaction of Stephanie's younger brother, Thomas. He witnesses this entire horrible event and nothing, no emotion, no outrage. It's like he has become desensitized to violence, which actually suggests something even more terrifying about this world, the erosion of empathy itself.
So that's where we'll leave off for now. We've gone from the quiet desperation of Blemish to the raw brutality of Savage. Two very different glimpses into this fallen empire. But how do these stories connect on a deeper level? And what does it tell us about what the author is trying to explore in this book? We will delve into that when we come back.
Yeah, it is a very chilling thought, isn't it? Like this idea that the worst thing about, the collapse of society is not just the violence, but it changes who we are, like as people, like our capacity for empathy.
Yeah, it's not a very comforting thought. And it makes me think about these threads that connect these two stories, Blemish and Savage. They're both depicting survival in this broken world, but they do it in very different ways. And I'd be curious what you make of that.
Well, I think what is fascinating is how the author gives us these two contrasting responses to this same catastrophic event. So in Blemish, it's almost like this internal exploration of survival, on a personal level. So you've got Jordan and he's scavenging, he's making these tough choices, but there's still this sense of hope, like that something better might be out there.
Right. He's resourceful, but he's not ruthless.
Yeah.
There's still like a moral compass there, even if it's a little shaky at times.
Exactly. And then you shift to Savage, and it's almost like the author is saying, okay, this is what happens when you lose that hope, when the need to survive just consumes you.
Right.
And the general is a perfect example of that. He's not just surviving, he's dominating. He's, forcing his will on everyone else.
Yeah.
And that brutality has become his way of life.
Yeah, it's like he's taken those property surrenders from Blemish to their logical extreme. But instead of empty houses, it's people's lives he's claiming.
Exactly. And I think that's the real horror of Savage. It's not just the violence itself, but the way it's become so normal, the way it's just part of how their society works.
And then you have Stephanie and Peter who are, clinging to love and normalcy in this world, which makes their fate all the more tragic.
Yeah, it's almost like a Shakespearean tragedy, isn't it? This doomed love story against this backdrop of chaos and brutality. Yeah. And it really underscores the cost of, the societal collapse. Not just, people dying, but the dreams, the hopes, the simple joys that are just gone.
And their story also raises this question about, resilience. Jordan in Blemish is resilient in a practical way. He's adaptable. He figures things out. But Stephanie's resilience is more about, holding on to her humanity, her emotions, even when, she's facing these dehumanizing conditions. It's a very different kind of strength, I think, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it makes you think about what really defines resilience in a world like this. Is it being able to adapt and survive no matter what, like the general? Or is it about, holding on to your empathy, your compassion, even when everything around you is telling you to let go?
It's almost like the author is presenting us with these, models of survival, and asking us to consider which one we might choose.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty unsettling thought because it makes you think about your own capacity for both good and bad.
And that's what makes this such powerful storytelling, right? It's not about giving you easy answers. It's about, making us ask ourselves hard questions, making us look at our own values and beliefs.
So thinking about Fallen Empire as a whole, how do you see these first two stories connecting to the rest of the book? I mean, will Jordan's journey lead him to a place like the General's community? Or maybe even to the General himself?
It's certainly possible we know that Jordan is heading out into this unknown world looking for something better. And what we see in Savage suggests that the world outside of Bellingville is even more dangerous, even more unpredictable.
And then there's Thomas, Stephanie's younger brother. his reaction or lack of reaction to his sister's death is really disturbing.
Yeah.
Could he become a danger to someone like Jordan?
That's a chilling thought. And it's not impossible. From what we've seen, he's kind of representative of this younger generation that has grown up in this broken world. And it makes you wonder, what values, what morals has he learned?
Right. Yeah. It's like he's this warning sign, that violence and apathy, they can become this cycle,
Mm-hmm.
and just create more of the darkness that caused them in the first place.
Right. And it raises this question of, can anyone be redeemed in this world? Can someone like Thomas, who seems to have lost his ability to care, can he ever get that back?
Yeah. Or will he just become, another part of that, brutality that the general represents? It really makes you wonder about the future of this fallen empire. Is it just doomed to repeat these cycles of violence?
Yeah.
Or is there any chance that something good can come from this, from the ashes? I guess we'll have to wait and see where the author takes us next. We've talked about survival and brutality and, innocence lost. Is there any room for hope in this fallen empire, though? I mean, it feels very bleak, the picture the author paints.
Well, that's the question that sticks with you, right? And I think that's part of what makes Fallen Empire so powerful. It doesn't give you easy answers, and it doesn't shy away from showing you just how hard things are in this world. It makes you consider that maybe when things are so dark, that maybe hope is actually dangerous,
But even in Blemish, which is, I think, less violent than Savage,
Mm-hmm.
there's this constant tension between staying and leaving, between holding on to what's familiar and risking everything to go into the unknown.
Right. And it's interesting how the author uses that tension to explore different sides of hope. Jordan's hope is almost childlike. It's based on those rumors about these safe places, and it's the hope of someone who hasn't really seen how broken the world is,
Right. Whereas his mom, when she tells him he has to leave, that feels like a different kind of hope. It's more practical.
Yeah.
Like she realizes that sometimes surviving means letting go.
Exactly. It's not about finding a paradise. It's about giving him a chance, even if it's a small one, to escape the slow death that's waiting for them if they stay in Bellingville.
And then there's Stephanie in Savage, wanting love and a normal life. Is that hope too, or is it something else?
I think it's a testament to how strong the human spirit is.
Right.
It's this need for connection and beauty, even when the world is so ugly. I don't know if it's hope, but it shows that even in the darkest places, some part of us still wants something more, something better,
But then there's Thomas Wright, and he seems to have lost that desire. The fact that he doesn't care, the way he's become numb to the violence, it's almost scarier than what the general does.
It is, because it points to this deeper corruption, like something fundamental about being human is gone. And it makes you think, what happens to a society when people just stop caring?
It's scary to think about. And it brings us back to that question we keep coming back to. Can anyone be redeemed in this fallen empire?
That's what the author leaves you with, and it's something each reader has to decide for themselves. But I think the fact that we're asking that question, that we're wrestling with these hard ideas, that's a form of hope in itself.
Yeah, I agree, because it means that we're still thinking about these things. We're still trying to understand what it means to be human, even when the world feels like it's lost all meaning. And that's what good stories do, right? They challenge us and they make us think, and in the end, they leave us with more questions than answers.
Well, to our listener, as you keep reading Fallen Empire, pay attention to how hope and despair and, strength and brutality play out in the rest of the stories. And think about what this broken world tells you about our own world.
Yeah.
About the choices we make and how we all have the potential for both darkness and light inside us.
That's a great point to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Fallen Empire. Till next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep talking about these things with each other.
Great job to our hosts Mark and Jen for their analysis of Fallen Empire. I want to take a moment to set the stage for next week. We'll be diving into our longest episode of Pindrop Perspectives to date as we discuss a global comic book property. You won't want to miss this special episode, so subscribe and follow Pindrop Entertainment on your favorite social media platform to stay in the loop for all their content releases. For now, remember, keep your perspective open. Artificial intelligence was used to assist in generating audio content for this episode.